All right, you're good.
Great. Hello, everyone. Hello, Splitting Geniuses. Welcome to another live episode of Splitting Smart, where Heather and I get to have candid and super informative discussions with divorce and well-being professionals. Our goal is to provide you with knowledge on various modalities of support that can help you to unhitch with fewer hitches. Today's conversation will cover emotional justice and how emotional injustice cannot be righted by legal justice. We will find out how a mediator navigates these situations and how they can help both parties negotiate, keep focused, and find a resolution. So unfortunately, there are no quick fixes or painless ways to be divorced, but there are simply paths that we can choose. And some are positive, some can be negative. So let's try to choose the positive ones. I am Lila Aiken Ali, a mom, a divorcee, and a divorce coach, and the founder of Split FYI. And Heather will be joining us behind the scenes today. She'll be monitoring any questions that you may have on our topic. So please feel free to put them in the chat box. And without further ado, our guest today is Scott Levin, a mediator and also known as Chief Peacekeeper, who helps couples divorce amicably and resolve post-divorce conflict outside of court. His aim is to get his clients to a yes and agree on terms in an affordable and expedited manner. Hello, Scott. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
So I love, first of all, Chief Peacekeeper. I love it. And
Yeah.
that feels already inviting because it is, when you are going through a divorce, let's face it, even on amicable terms, when you're negotiating certain things can get hot and heavy and in any regard, right? And so keeping that peace and keeping that understanding is so super important. And I'm a big fan of mediation. But I would love us to start the conversation with kind of understanding the misconceptions that when it comes to mediation, because a lot of people, and I know I get feedback, I feel like our mediator isn't on my side. I feel like the mediator is listening to, him or her more. And it's always that feeling of, I don't know, that the mediator's taking sides, which let's put that to rest. The mediators know.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. So, so my background is as a family law attorney turned full-time mediator. So my therapist, my marriage therapist, was suggested that I transition to mediation, almost 11 years ago, and that she really thought that would solve a lot of my problems, and it really has. It has, because I always wanted to stand for something. And I saw so often in my law practice how my clients were not winning even when we were winning.
Right.
And I just, and yes, I supported my kids. I have 3 kids. Things were going well. It's just, I just had a void. And that void was stemmed from like the practice of law that I found myself in. And so I transitioned completely to being a peacekeeper. So I only work in mediation to help resolve conflicts. I'm an attorney that helps people, move forward in their lives. Now, the neutrality really comes from the mediator, in my opinion. So when someone calls me, I immediately inform them, or my staff does, that the first step in the process is for the 3 of us to be on a phone call or do a free consultation together. Because we have to enter this divorce process just like we entered the marriage, which is together. And that neutrality, that independence has to come from the professionalism of the mediator, and setting those ground rules right from the beginning. I won't talk to you. I know you want to tell me all the little details, but if I do that, then how can I truly be independent? In the middle, if I've already been, poison pilled with these little comments about your spouse.
Exactly.
So that it really comes. It starts from the beginning, I think.
So that is, and in fact, I feel that everybody wants their word and their side to be told, right? So what you had just said kind of brings us to the main topic of our discussion, that, and there's so much around this, but the emotional justice piece. That, well, before we actually go into that, I actually did want to ask you, can mediation work for all kinds of couples? And who does mediation not work for? Because I think, let's set that bar, because I think that everybody, like we said before, they do want to go into this. A lot of people say, I just don't want to fight. I just don't want to fight. They clearly say that, but tell us what it really, so they might, I think everyone should try mediation, in my opinion, but who could it not work for?
I mean, if you're out to punish the other side through the process of divorce, then mediation is going to be difficult, because that's not what it's about. It's about coming to the table, knowing that you're going to try to make consolations, not necessarily against what the law is, but you can have an unfair but legal agreement, and if you want to pursue that, and you have a whole bunch of separate property that was yours before marriage, etc. And so it's going to be very distorted financially in the end. But if it's according to the law, then you can still work through mediation. But you can't use the process to vilify and punish the other party. So it really, that's where my when I start feeling that I have to come to the defense of this other person, that's not where mediation is going to work out for anyone. But to your point, I also believe that everyone should start in mediation, the divorce process. I understand the feelings are very raw. Oftentimes, one person is discovering that the other person might have had some infidelity or an emotional relationship, or that they've secreted gambling losses, or they've lost their job and there's financial pressure, or their kids have an issue and it's they're being dragged from appointment to appointment. I mean, all these things are, people are exhausted, they're emotionally drained, they've come to this point, but you have to make the best decision for your futures at that point. It's extremely important that you at least interview with a mediator before running off to two attorneys.
Right.
Because once you hire those attorneys and give up control of your case to them, you're in litigation. And there's a reason that people talk, a lot of people don't have good experiences in divorce litigation court.
Well, I think then you go into a territory of the unknown and a language that is completely foreign to yourself, right? It's becoming a lawyer to lawyer conversation, rather than what's good for you in your life. And again, it really depends. I think it takes a navigation through the mediation process to see if it can work. And not all mediators are made equal. So I think it is important what you said before. I think the conduct of a mediator from the get-go and out of the gates, and how they navigate onboarding clientele, I think is very important, and it's sure telling on how they operate. Now, going back to that though, do you ever feel the need that you need to, let's say there is a situation where there is a couple they just can't budge, right? And they are going back into, well, they're getting their emotional justice piece inside, like, well, he's wronged me or she's wronged me, and I don't want to budge on this, and I don't feel it's fair. We all know there's fair is the F word in divorce. What's fair? And no one wins, right? So, like, with all these in mind, do you ever suggest that you would meet with one of them one-on-one?
Yes, if there's ground rules, for sure.
Okay.
And sometimes during the mediations, I will split couples apart if I think that I can help make them a deal more efficiently if we're separated and we take the emotion out of it. I mean, that's what separating people does. So I always maintain that flexibility.
Right.
In my practice, I let people know, look, my job is to help you guys come to a equitable, fair outcome that saves you time and money. So that doesn't mean that we can't have long conversations about all these issues week after week. We can, but it's not about necessarily what the law says or what the judge would say. It's really what two people can come to. And so if I feel that the emotion's too high in the room and I can separate them into my two offices, then I will.
So your job, and I remember using a mediator in my own experience, and I remember that what the key takeaway for mediation for me was that it was that ability to kind of turn around some of the things that are being said, and we hear it from our emotional mind frame, right? So we're a lot of times frustrated, angry, feel like we're being, we're being put in a bad position. And so all we're hearing is all of that of what the other person is saying, feeling attacked. So tell us how, especially when it comes to, as you said, mentioned before, somebody has been wronged in a relationship. They found out there's infidelity, or they found out that there's gambling or so forth, and they feel like, okay, and they're unwilling to make a compromise. Both ends are unwilling to make a compromise. So how do you navigate through something like that? Like, what do you reframe a lot of the things that they're saying? Is that
Sure, that's one thing. The thing that I also do, that I'm a huge proponent of, is I believe in team building. So I believe that that as I'm going through the divorce process with my clients, I'm suggesting to them, if I feel like it, that we bring in, a Tanya RA or Lori Itkin or another certified divorce financial analyst, coaches like you all. Build a team. Don't depend on one person to solve all of your answers, and build that team so that you're in control, so that you understand. You're the quarterback and the coach. You understand what's happening. You're not just being like, this is a time for grown-ups. Like, we need to understand what's happening in our lives, understand the financial ramifications of the decisions we're making, understand how parenting is going to change. And we need to propose things that are customized to making this the best for us and the best for our family. So that takes like someone to really be in control. And so I definitely believe in coaches, therapists, CDFAs, and neutral parties to help kind of bring that about. From my practice, reframing, but I also say I have two of these and one of these. So sometimes people need to get it out of their system.
right?
And they need to talk. And there's nothing wrong with that, as long as they're not,
Attacking.
They can recant what's happened in a respectful way, in a way that shows they've been hurt, and they want an opportunity to explain that. And then, oftentimes we can move on. But of course, I'm there if it starts being, go crossing that line. But once people get that off their chest, a lot of times they're ready to move forward. And it's something that you can't do with two attorneys representing you in court. You don't really get that opportunity.
Right. And a lot of people want that opportunity just to speak their word and then move on. And I agree with that, but it can get out of hand. And that's when the therapy needs to come in. You're not the therapist in the room.
No, absolutely not. I say that all the time. I'm definitely not a therapist.
I know. What's interesting in what you said is that I often say the same thing, to my clients or to people who are going through it. It's like you kind of have to create your board of advisors, is what I say. Like, it's like you're building your board of advisors up, and often those people aren't those ones that are your family or super loved ones, and they're the ones that you can really count on to get you through this process. It's like building up your life again. So.
And those people can be dangerous too, in terms of giving you advice on divorce. A lot of people's first advice, including my mom asked me the other day, I need to get, blah, blah, blah's daughter is getting divorced. I need to get a real shark in LA. And I said, Mom, do you know what I do for a living?
Right.
Exactly. But her initial reaction was like, Scott will help me get someone that will destroy that evil guy. And and so like even good people have that. So like you have to just be careful about the advice you do get from friends.
And I think, and what you just said is so spot on, because then it becomes this like reciprocal cycle of going around and around, because what happens is everybody says that, like, get a good lawyer. I mean, the first time you tell people that you're getting a divorce, the first thing they say is get a good lawyer. I mean, that's it. That's the first thing that's out of their mouth, right?
Mhm.
Whoever they are in your life. And so, and I think that we're already having that misconception that, no, wait a minute, because what are you saying? You're saying that you're going into a fight. Listen, I know there's certain things that are inevitable. The hurt, the pain, the grieving, the transition, giving up a lot. There's certain things that unfortunately divorce brings, but the fight doesn't necessarily have to happen.
No,
So,
and and then oftentimes like people that fight for that emotional justice and fight, just to fight, that they perpetuate their hurt, their damage. You
right.
know, it's like the healing can only come from within. Like the legal justice, like the outcome of your case, sure, there's a legal process for that. But moving on from the emotional hurt that's caused from the end of a relationship at some point has to come from within. Um,
I agree.
and kind of accepting that it's not easy. Trust, I don't know if I could do it, but it has to come from within at some point to allow yourself to move forward, and staying in the fight is not helping anyone move forward.
Absolutely. Now, there's another, I think a lot of people also, and have given up on mediation because they feel like they're going to get more if they go to court, or they're going to get,
Totally.
so let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about my mom's call yesterday. She said, well, won't she get more, by getting, she was saying, real, like a female attorney that knows what she's been through. I guess there's this whole thing that's happened with my mom's friend's daughter. But so my point was, well, why not get a financial expert that's a neutral working for both parties, and then hire a consulting attorney for her that can consult with her but doesn't take over the case. That basically is someone that I'm on a case right now with Heather, where Heather was the neutral financial, and when she reported her report, it had so much influence on both parties that
Right.
they agreed that they were then able to be like, oh, okay, well, this is the numbers. These are the numbers. And then they both are now, then they both hired consulting attorneys to review the agreement that we came up with and negotiate any changes and make sure that, they understood everything. So again, building your team. And
Right.
then those lawyers only bill when you call, when you text, when you email.
Right.
So they're not just like out there doing things for you. So you control the costs, but get the benefit of the events.
Right. So
So
you feel
that's really,
confident.
I think that's the ideal team. Like
I
you
like
have
that.
an emotional coach, or, a therapist, you have a financial expert. I mean, in law school, they didn't teach me math in law school. That was not one of that there was not divorce math in law school.
No,
So you either, you're better off seeking out, a financial expert that can help us
for sure.
separate, and come to agreements on like, what is separate versus community, what is the community interest in the house that was owned before marriage, but then since both people have been paying into the mortgage. I mean, these are all things that a financial expert can really help with. And then, you just hire a consulting attorney to make sure that the agreement is representative of your interests as best it can be.
Well, it also takes out the emotional part of it, right? Because let's face it, there's a lot of emotion around the finances and what's fair, what's not, and so forth. And when the numbers are presented, you can't hide from those, and that's it. And you know what the law says, by and large, and give and take, whatever happens, you're going to spend more money getting through and figuring it out in front of a judge than if you would just say, all right, well, this is what we have to work with.
So why do you think that even in 2021, that even my mother says hire a lawyer? Is that a Hollywood thing? Like, where does it come
It's
from?
not just a Hollywood thing. So my divorce took place in London, UK, and I will tell you that it was the first thing everybody said to me. And so, and I think that, and I think it's often that case. I don't think that things have changed from that, because I will say that I feel, because it's such an unknown, the legal side of things, it's constantly changing. It's the unknown. You don't know your rights. I mean, half the time we don't even know our rights as civilians. Come on. If a cop pulls you over, how many people really know exactly all
Right.
the rights they have? Right. So there's a reason why. So I think that's our knee jerk reaction to a lot of things in life, is because, well, somebody else knows it. So let them take care of it. But what we're talking about here, and what you said so well in the beginning, was you don't want to abdicate all of that to a lawyer to make those decisions that are so important in your life, right? Also, if you have that one chance of getting back to some sort of communication with your ex that's sort of amicable, especially if you have kids, right? Or some kind of, what better way? Because I will tell you, once lawyers are involved, those letters, I remember receiving those lawyer letters. I mean, I used to be like, how could he say that about me? And he probably didn't even say that about me. And, I had to look up some of the words. I didn't even know what they meant. I mean, they were so like, so it's a game that if you start getting down that rabbit hole, it can become very dangerous. And I am so grateful to lawyers because they do know the law. They do know what's out there. They do have protection over us, right? But they should be making decisions that are really important for our future and rebuilding our lives. So,
Yeah,
but
I think staying in control is a key. I totally agree.
right. But I think that's why we're having these conversations, because we're hoping the more the people, listen to this, the more the people understand their options and how they can make it work for them. Because I think the key here is go into mediation knowing that this is really not where you're going to get your emotional justice served, right?
No.
You are going to get that with that board of advisors that you have, or, however, journaling, writing, there's tools out there to just get that out. But go in there knowing that, okay, I want to come to an agreement. And we're going to do the best way possible. Now, if you're up against somebody who doesn't want to agree, and like you said, that you would not work with somebody, you couldn't continue working with someone who's going to utilize that or use that opportunity to go against somebody else, right? So I think but trying it is very important.
Well, because if you try it, you're going to agree on a whole lot, even if by accident. And then if you, worst case scenario, you leave mediation with all these things that you've already agreed on.
Right.
So usually those agreements lead to other agreements.
Right.
Because I'm sitting there reminding the person like, well, why didn't, when we came to mediation and I explained what it was and you guys wanted to do this, you understood that you were going to have to come to the table.
Right.
And there's going to have to be a give and take, based on priorities and interests and what, all these things. But like there was going to be a give and take. So there's no give and take. What are we doing here really?
Exactly.
So I mean, that's not, I don't always just scold someone, but like, maybe they need to go down in non-COVID times, at least, to the family law, courthouse for, to just witness the first morning session.
Right.
And see what the alternative will look like for them.
Exactly.
So there's, they're scared straight. And then there's also just, I just believe in being really straight with people in general. And, if you're going to try mediation, then you really need to try.
Yeah, I agree. And really have that mindset around it. Well, I have enjoyed this conversation, and I think it's really important. Like I said, we want to change the minds of people like your mommy.
Yeah, no, sad.
We're sending her this video.
I know. Are you familiar with Our Happy Divorce? Do you know the book?
Oh yes, I do. I know
Yeah.
the couple. I've seen, yes. Which listen. Honestly, I think that it's so commendable for for those. I'm actually, I will tell you, I went through the court system 10 years in and out of court. I was up against it, and I was quite young, so it was like I needed my lawyer to protect me in many ways, and I didn't have peers. I didn't have all these coach. Oh my God, I did have a therapist, which helped a lot. But I will say that coming out of that, I never thought in a million years that I would have an amicable relationship with my ex, and I really do now. And we really, really work on it. I mean, it's been trial and error, but we really work on figuring out, like, we don't see eye to eye. This is not about agreeing, okay, and about everything that the ex. I mean, listen, even as couples, we don't really agree how they parent or how they say things or they do things. So we're not going to do it in divorce. But it's coming to, okay, all right, you're here, I'm here. Let's meet in the middle somehow, right? And let's do it without.
Do you mind me asking where did the change in your co-parenting relationship take place after those 10 years?
I think it was the change of communication. It was, well, first of all, it was getting out of lawyer-led conversations. and taking over. I actually became a trained mediator in the UK. And I thought, you know what? I need to really approach this in a different way. Changing the way that you communicate, it's gold dust. And like I said to you, that's why when the mediator is in a room, all of a sudden, either when you're saying something and you know that somebody else is listening to it, you kind of hear yourself a little bit more than if you're just fighting or saying things or on the phone or in emails that can get really ugly, right? So changing the way of communication is key. Understanding, not agreeing with, but understanding the other party and where they're coming from. Really hard to do, but the best remedy for anybody, right? And that's one thing that in mediation is really, it allows you that time. You can sit with it and be like, instead of hearing all the negative, all the bad, maybe you get a chance to be like, okay, wait a minute, all right, he's got a point or she's got a point, and again, especially when it's children involved, which is the hardest thing, is that those kids need both parents.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. I don't think the state and society is wrong when they encourage that it's ideal to have both parents actively involved in the children's lives. I believe in that as well. And I think that's tremendous what you guys have been able to do just personally. And I agree, that you're just another shining example of how you can, turn it upside down, stop with all the stuff, and let's just look after this kid and live our own best lives.
Also, you want to preserve your health. And that's another thing that I really, want to say. I honestly believe that when you go down the litigation path, your health suffers from it. It really does.
I mean, anyone that's been in a lawsuit, business lawsuit, it's no different.
Yeah, no, anytime you're going,
it's scary. And you're going to court all the time and you're being deposed and you're being asked, you're giving strangers, every financial transaction you've ever made.
Yeah.
And you're having your life digged into. God forbid there's actually anything there to find. Like
it's very scary.
Drug issue, or now marijuana is becoming a big issue, like where you can get someone's history of legally ordering pot, and now that's becoming like being used against people. So I mean, it's like there's just anything. It's just like you don't want your life turned upside down.
You really don't. And so exposed, and it's harder to recuperate from that. It really is. So the process is, and I mean, there's going to be things that you have to let go, and back to going to mediation is knowing that there is no win. No one wins, right? And
no one really wins in mediation either. It's just the system doesn't win in mediation.
That's exactly, the mindset that you have to go in, but it is a compromise and it is something to move forward and get on back with your life in a faster way. So.
Well, I love it. I love talking with you. I hope Heather's doing okay.
Yeah.
And,
she had her second shot, so she's feeling a little under the weather. She'll be back on our next
live. Yeah, and I love what you guys are doing. I think I joined that page, your page like really early on. And thank you so much for having me on.
So Scott, wait, before you go, please let everybody know, we will put it in the show notes, but what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm Scott Levin, Chief Peacekeeper. You can go to chiefpeacekeeper.com. or Scott SCOTT at lawyerlevin.com.
Great.
All right. Yeah, thanks guys. Thank you.
Thank you for being here.